It was just an ordinary evening when my daughter shouted from her bedroom, "Mom, the teddy bear can talk." I smiled at first, thinking it was just a cute stuffed toy my parents had sent, not for any occasion, just because. But then I heard the voice coming from the bear. It wasn't the sound that made me freeze. It was the name it said. My hands began to shake. Not out of fear, but because, for the first time in years, I wasn't sure who I really was. I was in the kitchen when it started. The dishwasher humming. A breeze nudging the curtains. The kind of afternoon that felt too ordinary to be remembered. I was wiping crumbs off the counter when Elsie's voice shot through the house. "Mommy, the teddy bear talks." I smiled, half listening. She'd been in her room for over an hour, constructing some elaborate tea party, no doubt. Talking teddy bears weren't exactly a rare sight these days. Every toy had a button or a voice chip. "He says my name, Mommy."
Come listen.
Still, something in her tone, too surprised to be pretend, pulled me away from the crumbs. I walked down the hallway toward her room, pausing at the doorway. She was sitting cross-legged on the carpet, hair wild, cheeks flushed, clutching a plush brown bear with soft velvet paws and a red ribbon stitched at the neck. I didn't recognize it. "Where did that come from?" I asked. She beamed. "It was in the box from Grandma and Grandpa. It came today." I blinked.
Right.
A package had arrived earlier, brown cardboard, no markings, just our last name and Elsie's in my mother's handwriting.
Slantit cursive, nit familiar.
I hadn't thought much of it. Figured it was a late gift. My parents liked sending little surprises for no reason at all. Elsie hugged the bear to her chest, then placed it down gently. "Watch." She pressed its paw. A soft click. Then a voice. "Good night, little Lila. Love you just like always." My breath caught. Not because of the voice, female, warm, vaguely familiar, but because of the name. Lila. Elsie didn't flinch. "Isn't that weird, Mommy? That's not my name." "No." I managed. "It's not." She smiled, unbothered. "Maybe it thinks I'm someone else." Maybe. Or maybe someone else still thought she was. I sat down slowly on the edge of her bed. The words played again in my mind. "Good night, little Lila." The bear stared blankly at me from across the room. Silent now. But I swear the air had shifted. The name shouldn't have meant anything. It wasn't mine. And yet, something deep inside me remembered. I smiled at Elsie. Or, at least I tried to. Probably just a mistake. I said, my voice thin. She scrunched her nose. "So, who's Lila then?" I hesitated. My hands itched to fidget with something, my sleeve, the edge of the blanket, anything. "I don't know, sweetheart," I replied. Maybe they meant to record a different name and didn't double-check. Elsie didn't seem bothered. She went back to arranging a line of plastic teacups for her bear and a few other stuffed guests. The moment passed for her, light as breath. But for me, it lingered. Hung in the room like a scent you can't place but can't ignore. I stood up, smoothed her hair, kissed her forehead. "Come downstairs when you're hungry," I said, and walked out with my smile still stitched onto my face like a badly placed patch. In the kitchen, I poured a glass of water with hands that weren't quite steady.
Took a sip, set it down.
Then just stood there, staring at the sink. Why did that name hit me like that? Why Lila? I told myself it was nothing. Probably a recycled audio file. Maybe the bear company shipped out a batch of generic messages, and we just happened to get a strange one. But I didn't believe myself. Not really. That night, after Elsie fell asleep, one leg kicked outside the blanket, breathing deep and even, I crept into her room and carefully lifted the teddy bear from her arms. It was warm from her body. It smelled faintly of lavender shampoo and childhood. I took it to the living room, sat on the couch, turned off the TV, let the silence stretch long, then pressed the paw.
Click.
"Good night, little Lila. Love you just like always." I pressed it again.
Click.
"Good night, little Lila. Love you just like always." And again. And again. Each time, the words landed heavier. Not louder, just deeper. Somewhere around the fourth or fifth repetition, it hit me, not all at once, not like lightning. More like fog lifting from a field. A voice. A hand on my shoulder. The corner of a room I barely remembered. And someone whispering, "Be a good girl, Lila. Smile for mommy." But it wasn't my mother's voice. And that wasn't my name. I sat in the dark, the teddy bear resting on my lap. That same phrase replayed in my mind like a skipping record. "Good night, little Lila. Love you just like always." I tried to reach for memories, but they didn't come like a flood. They came like single drops of water falling onto old stone. The first thing was a photo. One that had its corner cut off like someone had tried to erase a face. I don't remember where I saw it, but I remembered the green walls in the background. And someone maybe, standing near a low wooden bed. Then that room, the one with light green walls, returned to me. Not clearly.
No voices.
Just air. A dusty scent. And the strange heaviness of a place that was never home, but where I had stayed. Then came a woman. An older one. Not my mother. Not my grandmother. Just a woman. I can't picture her face. But I remember her voice, warm, low. Sometimes crackling like an old radio. She never said my name. She only called me her little one. Her good girl. Never Clara. Never sweetheart. Just titles. Never a name. I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry and tight. My fingers still rested on the bear. I reached for my phone and dialed. The call picked up after 2 rings. "Hello." My mother's voice. Still the same.
Calm.
A touch brighter when answering someone familiar. I kept my voice even. "That teddy bear you sent, Elsie. It's so cute. Where did you get it made?" There was a pause. Not even a full second, but long enough for me to hear it. Then she replied, quick, smooth, too smooth. "Oh, I just asked someone to record a message. Just for fun." They had some preset phrases, and I picked one that sounded sweet. The explanation was too polished. Too ready. I didn't press. Just thanked her. Said goodnight. Hung up. And then I just sat there. Phone in hand. Bear on my lap. And only one thought in my head. That voice, it was hers. Not a company. Not a stock recording. A real person. Someone I once knew. Someone I once lived with. And somehow, even now, she was still calling me by a name that was never mine. I couldn't sleep that night. Not out of fear. Not even anger. My mind just wouldn't stop. It kept circling, pacing, digging, like a room full of drawers flung open by wind. And through it all, one phrase kept echoing like a heartbeat against my ribs. "Good night, little Lila. Love you just like always." I hadn't heard that name in years. Maybe not ever spoken aloud to me like that. And yet something about it felt wrong. Familiar in a way it shouldn't be. Around 2 a.m., I got out of bed. I walked quietly, careful not to wake my husband or Elsie. I opened the basement door, flipped the light switch. The flickering bulb took a second to settle. The air was damp, old. The kind that holds secrets in the dust. I moved toward the back, past boxes of Christmas decorations and retired backpacks, to a large green plastic storage bin. Faded masking tape across the lid read in marker. Clara's old things. I popped the lid open. The scent hit first. Aged cotton, crinkled paper, and something that might have been glue or a memory. Inside, the artifacts of a small life. A polka-dotted dress, a chipped Hello Kitty mug, a bent copy of Are You My Mother, a pair of silver canvas shoes with frayed laces. And then I saw it. The bear. So old it barely resembled anything soft. Tufts of fur missing, one ear torn clean off, plastic eyes scratched and dulled, the silver bow around its neck faded to gray. But unmistakable. The same kind of bear my mother had just sent to Elsie. Same design. Same size. Same shape. I sat cross-legged on the cold cement floor, bear in lap. I turned it over. The back seam was frayed. I carefully peeled it open with my fingers, not destroying it, but unthreading something deeper. Inside, no sound chip, no stuffing out of place. But I felt something small, rigid, wedged against the fabric lining. Paper. My fingers trembled as I pulled it out. A small square, folded tight. The paper was yellowed with time, but the ink still legible. Blue ink. Handwritten. A handwriting I knew, but wished I didn't. I unfolded it. One line stared back at me. If we don't speak her real name, she won't remember. I froze. Not from shock, but because it confirmed something I hadn't dared to believe. I had once been called something else. And someone older, someone with authority had made a choice. A choice to erase it. I stood slowly, the note still clutched in my hand, my back damp with cold sweat. I climbed back upstairs, walked straight to the office, and opened my laptop. I logged into the local government records portal, the one that stores birth certificates, identity documents, anything filed officially. I typed in my name, my birth date, ID number. After a few seconds, the screen loaded a scanned copy of my original birth certificate. I zoomed in, and there it was. Full legal name, Clara May Whitmore.
No Lila.
No, also known as.
No nicknames. No corrections. No exceptions.
Just one name.
Mine.
Not Lila. Never Lila. I stared at the screen, bathed in blue light, the house around me silent. Still holding the wrinkled paper. Still trying to breathe evenly. The voice in the new bear. The note in the old one. Same tone. Same intention. Same lie. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a sweet memory, a mix-up. A gesture. It was repetition. Reconstruction. And for the first time in my life, I began to understand. Maybe my entire childhood had never truly belonged to me. I called my mother the next morning. No pretending. No small talk. Do you remember my old teddy bear? I found it. Her voice stayed light, as usual. Oh, probably something I packed away years ago. Is something wrong, honey? There was a note inside, I said, slowly, watching for her reaction. Handwritten. Blue ink. A pause. Did you write that? I asked. Write what? She replied. Too quickly. Too smooth. The line. If we don't speak her real name, she won't remember. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Lila was just a nickname, she finally said, her voice soft. I always thought it sounded sweet. I clenched my jaw. Then why did you try to make Elsie use it? Why did you record a message calling her that and hide it in a bear? I heard a chair scrape, like she had just sat down. And then her voice, trembling just slightly. Because your sister, the real Lila, she passed away when she was 2. I forgot how to breathe. I had a sister? You are you, she said quickly, as if trying to patch over the words. After Lila died, I couldn't handle the hole she left behind. And when you came along, I thought if we just didn't say anything, if we moved forward, everything would be okay. Everything would be okay. And suddenly so many things made sense. Why none of my childhood photos had dates? Why certain toys in the house felt like they didn't really belong to me? Why my birthdays always felt like placeholders? Why I'd spent most of my life feeling like a version of something no one would name. So you never really let me be mine, I whispered. You just wanted a second chance at Lila. That's not true, Clara. But you're not denying it either, I said. You thought if you called me Lila, if you never said Clara, then maybe I wouldn't remember. I wouldn't know. No one ever told me about the daughter who came before me. No one told me I was the one after. No one told me I was the replacement. But now I knew, and I couldn't unknow it. I sat in the car for nearly 15 minutes without starting the engine. In my left hand, I held the birth certificate, an old printed copy, still creased from where I'd clenched it the night before. My right hand rested gently on the steering wheel. Outside, morning light spilled across the street, and children pedaled by on small bikes in front of the preschool. And in the rearview mirror was Elsie. She was tying her hair into a loose ponytail, softly singing a song I didn't recognize. Her little face round and carefree. I looked at her, then back at the document in my lap. Clara May Whitmore. My name. For the first time, it felt heavy, not as a burden, but as something real. Something earned. The weight of truth after years of absence. I swallowed a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. If I don't break this, I thought, will I someday turn my daughter into someone she was never meant to be? It wasn't a question. It was a knowing. And I'd known it for years, just never said it aloud. I used to think silence was acceptance. That if I didn't stir the past, things would stay peaceful. That if I carried the damage quietly, at least everyone else could remain untouched. But today, looking at her reflection, I knew I couldn't do that anymore. I reached for a small sticky note in the front pocket of my bag. My hand still trembled a little, but my handwriting came out steady, deliberate. 3 lines. Simple.
Clear.
Uncompromising. I am Clara, not Lila. And I will never let my daughter be a replacement. I stuck the note onto the old bear. The first one. The one filled with things no one had ever said aloud. I carried it up to the attic. Opened the box. Placed the bear inside. No ceremony. No tears. No witnesses. Just me. And the silence, this time not to bury anything, but to end it. I used to think finding yourself was a moment of explosion. A scream. A slammed door. A single choice that lit up everything. But it wasn't. It felt more like stitching up a torn seam. One thread at a time, patient, quiet, invisible. No blood. No breakdown. Just the silent clarity of a decision. I started by correcting my name. Everywhere it still lingered. I rewrote it. Each time I typed Clara into a form, my heart paused, as if I were spelling out the name of an old friend I had forgotten. Someone who had been erased without warning, and was now finally returning. Bank accounts. School forms. The PDA list at Elsie's preschool. Bit by bit, I brought her back, not a new version of me, but the name that was always mine. The next week, I took Elsie to the district office.
She didn't know why.
She only knew there would be ice cream after. I requested a copy of her birth certificate, not to change anything, but to make sure. To confirm that her name, her real name, was the only one ever attached to her life. Elsie June Whitmore. I stared at it for a while, not because I doubted it, but because I needed to see it.
To protect it.
To make sure no one could ever try to bend it into a shape it wasn't meant to take. I folded the paper gently, slipped it into a folder, not just for safekeeping, but for guarding. That night, I opened my laptop. I didn't have a clear plan, but my hands began to type. Soft lines. Sharp truths. I wrote about the teddy bear, the note inside, the name that haunted me through childhood lullabies. I wrote about what had been erased, and what I was beginning to recover, not to accuse, not to shame anyone, but to stop doubting myself, to let each sentence I typed be one more piece of myself returning, stronger, fuller, quieter. And that night, when I looked in the bathroom mirror, no makeup, no forced smile, I whispered,
Clara.
welcome back. That evening, the rain came soft and thin, like threads of mist. Just enough to wet the porch roof, but not enough for anyone to close the windows. I was brushing Elsie's hair, her little legs swinging off my lap, her head warm against my chest. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and sleep. Then, in the quiet, she turned her head and looked up at me with wide, curious eyes. Mom, she asked softly, where's the teddy bear? Her voice wasn't accusing, just curious, the kind of curiosity that belongs only to 6-year-olds, untarnished and simple. I paused. For a split second, I was 6 again, asking my own mother questions like that, and being met with vague smiles, deflections, soft hands that said everything but the truth. But I had promised myself it would stop with me.
So I smiled gently
And said, he's tired, sweetheart. He's resting for a while. Elsie didn't question it. She turned back to her doll and started twirling its skirt with her fingers, perfectly content. Then, as if it had nothing to do with anything, she whispered, I like my name. I froze. My fingers were still in her hair, halfway through a braid. I swallowed. What name? I asked. Elsie June, she said, with a small grin. It sounds like me. I pulled her close, tighter than before. Didn't say a word. I just held her, long enough to feel her heartbeat soften against mine. Long enough to know something inside me had loosened, too. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, I sat by the window in the living room. The rain tapped gently on the glass, the kind of sound that feels more like memory than weather. Outside, a soft yellow light spilled from the neighbor's porch. Inside, my reflection hovered faintly on the window, not sharp, not polished, but present. Not Lila, not a replacement. Just me, Clara. And for the first time in my life, my name didn't feel borrowed. It didn't feel like something I had to earn, or something I had to explain. It just fit. Not too small, not too big.
Mine.
And my daughter's name? Also hers. Not a shadow, not a placeholder, but a name that belonged to a girl who knew who she was. If you've ever felt lost in your own life, leave a comment below. Your story might give someone else the courage to speak. And if you see yourself in Clara, hit subscribe. We don't have to stay silent anymore.